Okay, we had to orchestrate that entire face thing. No one in the audience wants to know how long we were just doing
3 seconds is a long time.
I know, we were frozen like this for so long. The things we do for social media.
I mean, you're really learning here. You're figuring out all the tricks.
I don't even know if that's a trick. I feel like maybe that's the thing that you shouldn't do, but I think it's really funny, so I do anyway. So hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cackle. This is Entry Point's weekly interview series where we talk to people running startups, small business owners, and people that are having impact on our communities across the Midwest. And today we're talking to my friend, Joe Malcoun, who is an angel investor and entrepreneur and has done a ton of stuff across in Michigan, definitely in Ann Arbor is really, really interesting. So I'm super excited about this one. And so welcome, everybody. Oh, if you have any questions or comments or harassments for us, put them in the comments and then we can kind of try to address them. Although a couple times, I'll start this out with one time right before the election, Joe was in, it was an ad for Biden, I think. And then you became quite the polarizing figure on there. And so hopefully the comment section doesn't end up being like people who want to murder you.
I'm pretty comfortable with all the harassment now. I think have you had a guest harassed yet?
No, it's so funny because people always talk, well, I'm really bringing on the hackers now, but people are always talking about, oh yeah, like during a live stream, I got like my guest got harassed or whatever, but I've like never had that happen before. So
I feel like I might be able to make it happen.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, if it would happen, it will be today. Also, it's my birthday, so that would be really funny.
Yeah, it's Emily's birthday. I feel like everybody should be wishing Emily a happy birthday in the comments.
And then no one does it, and then I cry because I'm 37.
Well, I'm going to wish you a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Emily.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's super special I get to be here on your birthday.
I know. It's. I'm glad to be talking to a friend today, and not. I guess I like most of our guests.
Oh, dude.
So I'm like, I guess I like them, so it wouldn't be too bad. But
right now, there's like 4 people who are like, wait a minute, was it me?
Was it me?
Am I not the liked guest?
Okay, we're starting off. So Joe is I met you about, it was probably longer than 7 years ago now. I think we've said 7 years for like 3 years.
Yeah.
So about a decade ago, I met with Joe Malcoun in a coffee shop in downtown Ann Arbor. And I was with Carrie Jones, and you told us like your whole kind of journey to like kind of where you found angel investing and like the entrepreneurial community and all that. So share a little bit about, pretend I don't know you, and share a little bit about like your background. And
yeah, sure. At some point, can we talk about the phrase angel investing?
Oh yeah, exactly. I was like, investor, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm pretty transparent about sort of my journey to this, but basically, you know, my early career was actually in corporate sustainability. I was out in New York helping build a consulting practice, and we were really, really fortunate. We got to work with some like incredibly big brands and some really big sort of early sustainability strategies. And a lot of those got translated into like global marketing campaigns and things like that. Effectively, like that was, that was like my first experience in like business. I was like, in college, I was like long hair and like environmental, you know, policy guy. Like
long hair.
Yeah, totally.
Your beard was short, your hair was long.
Yeah, I just decided to flip it. So
yeah, exactly. That's how aging goes. You
just,
yeah. Lose the hair.
But so through that experience, I sort of started to get my first like peek into like the business world, or like what you could really do in the business world. And I was still at the same sort of motivations. I just kind of realized that, you know, private enterprises might have the right resources to address some of our biggest environmental challenges. And so that prompted me to like go to business school and learn more about how I might do that. And while I was in business school at Michigan, one, I was recruited by the Wolverine Venture Fund, which is this really cool student-led venture fund. And like, I had no idea what like venture capital even was at that point. But it was a really cool opportunity to like get actual experience in like what that is. And two, like I kind of like realized I was an entrepreneur. Like I didn't realize that before, but like when I was building this consulting practice, I was like, you know, programming the phone and watering the plant. And then I also like writing up the multi-million-dollar work, you know, that we sold. So those were all like kind of big, those were fairly life-changing experiences. And so on the Wolverine Venture Fund, what I learned was I loved very much how I got to like go out and spend my day like talking to people that were way smarter than me with really cool ideas. And like I've always been like an optimist, so like I hear an idea, I'm like, yeah, I can totally see how that works, right? Which doesn't always make me a great investor, but
that's kind of like, I call that fangirling. I'm like an entrepreneurial fangirl, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, tell me more. And then I'm like, oh, good thing I have no money, because otherwise I'd be like, hey, no. I was like, that sounds so interesting.
Well, I mean, I think my flaw is I can always like rationalize a path for this thing, right? But ultimately, like I love that part of it. The part that was not so fun was you take like 25 MBAs at a top tier, you know, program, and you put them in a room. You tell them they're like extra special. And it got like pretty toxic at times.
I could definitely see that. I one time had an interview and I couldn't attend. So like they did like group interviews, and I was in public accounting. Like I was graduating from Michigan State, going into public accounting, and they did group interviews, and I couldn't make the one for Michigan State. And so I went to the one with U of M. So it was me and all the U of M students, and they were literally all just being like, I heard there was somebody from Michigan State. Like, good luck to them. And I'm like literally sitting there drinking my coffee, being like, I'm coming for you.
I would have loved to have been a part of that.
And then I was like, that's funny.
Well, yeah, like, you know, what would happen is everyone would like go off and like meet entrepreneurs and, you know, do some work and then come back, and we'd like just bicker and like pick on each other and snipe each other and basically try to prove how dumb one another were. Yeah, so that part I didn't love. Yeah. So anyhow, but that was like my first like experience in sort of you know, and we actually like our team got to do like you know, a legit deal where like we sourced it and, you know, all that, and it was really exciting. All right, so then after that, you know, Kayla and I were pretty committed to like sticking around. Like I'd already lived on the West Coast, I'd lived on the East Coast, and you know, for whatever reason, I always kind of felt like I'd rather be a little bit of a bigger fish in a smaller pond. And no matter how much I might have killed it in a career on either coast, I didn't really feel like I'd ever be able to like make a difference in like the community piece, right? Like, so yeah, so I kind of kept my search mostly, not entirely, but mostly local. And through that, I was recruited by this really like sort of special team at DTE, and it used to be called the corporate development strategy and corporate development team. So it's basically like an internal investment banking and management consulting team for the CEO's office. And it was run by a guy named Knut Simonson. And Knut had like some really great impact on this community early on. Like he started things like the Clean Energy Prize, which is like a big catalyst for like a lot of clean tech startup ideas out of the university and things like that. But anyhow, Knut, our job was basically to serve the CEO's office, and we were this small group of, analysts, associates, and even though like we were early in our career, we had like crazy exposure to the leadership of the company and way more sort of influence than we probably deserved at that point. And it was probably as good of a gig as I think you could get if you were interested in things like energy and economic development, things like that. I still believe this. Like, I think DTE and utilities in general have the highest correlation with like bottom line economic development, right? Like, people often talk about bigger companies in our region and what they should do for economic development, like the autos and stuff. But every dollar that DTE spends on economic development, you can measure direct ROI on that business becoming a customer, right? So
that's interesting, 'cause I do find that like the utility companies like DTE are just like a lot more progressive when it comes to economic development, and like have like actual economic development or like business support departments and things like that, where they're like really trying to connect with the local community versus just like offering their services.
Well, and their reach and impact, I mean, all of it is just so well aligned with like a lot of things that people like you and I get excited about when it comes to like growing businesses in the region, and not just big businesses, right? Like, I mean, every business kind of strategy. And that always got me like really fired up over there. And I always try to like find some little project along those lines. But at the same time, it's still DTE, a big, very large, fossil fuel burning utility. And, I agree that they have the tendency to be very progressive in a lot of their programming, but despite their desire, a lot of times it's just like the infrastructure of that organization, the bureaucracy, like it just, you can't, there's no momentum, right? So what I found personally was I would like find some little like issue and be like, I'm going to fight this internally and change the company. And I did like many times, but the problem was every time I like did one, there's like 25 more.
I think that's like everyone working at a large organization to some extent runs into that, because I know my brother, when he was working at a really large organization, had the same kind of experiences. And I was like, oh man, I was like, come to the dark side where we all work at small businesses and we all I was like, come to the side where we always wonder if we're going to get paid the next day.
Okay, that's the sad side. That's the dark side. But anyhow, so after about like I was a few years into that role, and I really learned a ton, and I made incredible contacts. And I remember I was like talking to Chris Ryzik one day, because I was like, I wanted Chris to like hire me at like Renaissance or something.
Oh yeah. So we're head of Renaissance, which is a venture capital fund of funds.
Yeah. So I remember like hitting up Chris and telling him I was like thinking about a job change, and like he literally was like, Joe, you have the job everyone like you wants.
That's funny. Everyone liked you.
He's like, you already have the job that you're, and that's like, shit, okay. Because I failed to mention, like, Canute also ran a venture fund. So we got to do like a lot of interesting stuff along that. Yeah. Cool. Anyhow, but around the same time, my wife, we had some tragedy in her family. So Caitlin lost her mom in a car accident. And then shortly thereafter, she lost her grandfather. And then kind of shortly thereafter, we sort of lost many members of her family. And basically we were, it was revealed to us that like her grandfather had built a fairly substantial estate and like just kind of never told anybody much about it. And so we suddenly were responsible for, a fair bit of money. And this is all relative, I've learned since I kind of got into this world. Wealth is like the most relative concept you can imagine, but it was certainly more money than we ever sort of could have imagined having responsibility over, and certainly at a young age. Like we were in our early 30s. And like the initial reaction was like, just pretend it's not there and ignore it. And, we were worried about like,
everyone imagines that they would do if they got a lot of money suddenly. I'm like, oh yes, I would totally save so much, and then I would find a financial advisor, and then
well, yeah. The thing is by the way, you don't just inherit the money, you inherit like people that come with the money. And which was great because Caitlin's grandfather had an amazing team of professionals that were responsible for sort of helping us after the fact. And we were super grateful. And I have crazy, like, if you want to get into like a crazy, like, holy shit story about like someone trying to grift us and all this stuff, like I got a good one.
Wait, what's grift mean?
Like steal.
Oh my gosh.
You want to hear this story? This is a good story.
Yeah, so but I'm watching the time so that I don't have you here until 1 p.m.
You can do it after 11 o'clock? You can do it after 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyhow, so we initially were like so freaked out, like, well, what's this gonna like do to our life or our friends, and what are people gonna say? You know, all of those things. We're kind of embarrassed of it. But over time, as I was like looking at my career path, and I was like on the right career path, like I had like the title and the salary and, you know, all that stuff, but I wasn't happy. Like I was like, you know, like I had twins at home who were babies and like never saw my family and all that stuff. And eventually, it took us like a long period of time to get it, like over a year of discussion amongst ourselves and people like who were helping us. I kind of decided that like maybe the best to do this like money was free myself from this career that I was unhappy in, and use the capital to help build great things, you know, within the community. And so I left and I hung a little shingle called CKM Capital, which stands for Cone, Klein, Malcoun, which is like the 3 generations that are involved. And I started like initially, I just spent 6 months talking to everybody, and like that's probably when we had our first.
I think that's when we met.
I met everybody, like name them. I had coffee with them, and what I was basically doing was like 2 things. One, like learning just how does this shit work, right? And then, but more importantly, I was basically drawing up a list that was basically like, who do I want to work with and who do I maybe not want to work with, right?
Yeah, that's
and because what I learned at DT was like the thing that I really was motivated by was like who I spent my time with. You know, my good days were the days I spent time with colleagues that really inspired me and like I enjoyed, and my bad days were the ones where I was around people that frankly like I just didn't feel a lot of alignment with, and I didn't want to, you know, spend 8 hours with or whatever it was if I wasn't good with my family.
If anybody has seen Joe go back and forth on like Twitter or something like that, you know how painful that could be, because I literally sometimes will be like watching an argument unfold, and this will be like popcorn. Because I'm like, oh gosh, get ready. This person's having a disagreement.
Well, I learned that I've been telling people that my superpower is I can't be fired. Except by Caitlin, which, you know, but like
real quick, I feel like this part is kind of good too for people who are kind of like are high net worths, because like whether they like kind of just came into the money like you guys did, or like you know, there's a lot of high net worth individuals in Michigan and like in like the Midwest generally, but like this kind of career path is not as common here. Where I love how the lights just went out behind. It's like, ugh. Although you look more spotlighted now.
Yeah, you're right. Put it background.
So I think that like that would be good to touch on too, in the context of like other people who might be watching who are like, oh yeah, like I've never really heard of this as an option for like how to manage money or anything like that.
Yeah, and you know, I will say, so I sort of we did have great people around us and they were super supportive, but it was kind of like thrown at us in a very intense way under like basically losing Caitlin's family, which made it all the more loaded, right?
Yeah.
But so we kind of had to like figure this out on our own. And as a result, like since then, I find myself in this position where like a lot of people refer to me, folks who suddenly came into money at a young early part of their career in life. And, you know, I basically share with them like how I learned about like allocations and what parts to kind of do on my own and what parts to maybe leave to professionals, and how do you get into like access to these deals. And, you know, so it's something I really actually enjoy doing. And I found that, frankly, one of the ways I built out my network, particularly of like potential co-investors, is playing that role of like someone who's like, hey, you know, here was my, and I don't like have anything to teach. I don't have like a curriculum, or I just have my own experience, right? And I just share my own experience as transparently as possible, and they can sort of take from that with whatever they can. And but I found that doing that has enabled me to like gather just an incredible group of folks around me. You know, like, you know, there's friends of Walt, but there's also friends of Joe. So
I know. So people didn't see earlier, we had maybe like 20 episodes ago, Walt Young, he's on the west side of the state, I believe.
yeah, no. Walt's in Bluefield Hills.
Oh, you know, you're right. He's in Bloomfield Hills. I don't know why.
He used to work out there. Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's why. So he was in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. High net worth individual, has a gigantic portfolio, and a lot of entrepreneurs will just say that they like are raised around from friends of Walt. So he's like a rich.
What I love about the Walt strategy too is like it totally ignores the concept of like institutional capital. It's just like you could fund a whole company just on Walt's friends. You don't need to go to like a venture capital fund.
Yeah. This is a good a random question to ask you too. So Walt's whole premise for why he wanted to be on the Cackle was that he felt I had said something in a prior, he's probably watching, so I got straighter.
I would be so honored if he were.
Yeah, so he was saying I had said something in another thing that we had been doing about how you know, investing in people of color and women-led companies is a great way to like make returns, and that it's like a positive, beneficial thing for your portfolio, like just numbers wise, like that's not like a money coming to you wise, but he felt like I was being too theoretical in that, and kind of just saying it more like a liberal statement versus like actually knowing. So he actually like looked at his own portfolio, and he's invested like over $150 million into different companies, or that's the size of his portfolio, and kind of did the analysis of like, is that true or not? And then wanted to like talk about that on the show. Like what do you think? So you're so high net worth individual is the polite way of saying rich person. So as another, in case people are like, why does she keep saying that? I don't get what that means. So like you're another high net worth individual. Like, what do you think in like your investing? Have you noticed that anecdotally?
So I don't, first of all, I don't have the data points that Walt has.
He's crazy over there.
And by the way, we should note like what Walt said was basically like, holy shit, I looked and like I basically funded a whole bunch of immigrants. Like he was like, you know, and I thought that was like an incredible moment in that conversation, was Walt like, you know, coming to that realization on his own that, and if you look at his portfolio, he did. And a lot of those technologies are like biotech deals and things that come from people who came to this country to research at the university and, you know, ended up spitting something out. And I think that's incredible. So I don't know if I have the data yet, but I will say that if I look at my portfolio and I look at the operators who fall under those categories, like there's some of my favorite companies to work with. There's some of my, there's some of the like easiest sort of like companies to work with. I also will say that oftentimes they also have like the most problematic investor group. And I often find myself, so like one of the roles I like to play is like, you know, basically getting between entrepreneurs and other people on the cap table who are like Walt described this, right? Like the sense of entitlement is absolutely incredible. Like someone puts 10 grand into a company and they think they have the right to like question every single thing the entrepreneur does, and frankly, usually with zero experience in running a company like these, right? And I find that gets ramped up with founders who are not white dudes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I do think that is true.
yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
I was like, based on my
so
own experience, I would say
infuriating.
that.
What?
I was like, based on my own experience, I would say that.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just be like, that's funny that this person like didn't have this experience, yet I did.
Yeah. Funny how that works. Right, yeah.
Over time, you like realize it more and more, but yeah. So,
By the way, this might be controversial. Are you ready?
oh, I was like,
Are you ready?
yes.
Oftentimes, those investors who are giving those founders such a hard time, oftentimes they identify themselves in those groups.
Oh, interesting.
So I feel like I've come across a lot of instances where, and I don't have a theory on it at all, but I've come across a lot of instances where a founder is a minority or a woman, and an investor who is a minority or a woman, and not. By the way, this is not minimizing how many white dudes are way too overprivileged in their interactions. Okay, but I was surprised to see that happen at times.
I think there is like some like mentorship stuff. I like feel like I've read about this a little tiny bit, but I think that there's like a thought that like if you had a hard time as you were building your career, that then
Sure.
like mentoring somebody that's kind of the same, like they say like women, well, the one thing that I read based on not being knowing anything is that like a woman that's mentoring another woman, a lot of times like that relationship can either be really positive or it can
Yeah.
be like a little bit like, you know, I had a really hard time coming up. So like you can't complain, and like a little bit like kind of bringing things up that way. So maybe it has something to do with that.
Well, it's like the same thing with like, anytime you go through like a master's or a thesis process, like in academia, like, well, I was harassed by my thesis advisor, so you're going to be too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So yes. So okay, I still want to keep hearing about just both like how people can get into angel investing, or investing in early stage companies.
Yeah.
If they're interested. And then also I think like you have kind of an ongoing way that like you build relationships really easily. So if anybody knows, like if you go to like a restaurant with Joe or like anything and you're like just grabbing a drink, like he'll spend equal amount of time talking to the bartender or the server and being like, oh yeah, or the owner will come over. Like literally the most annoying thing of all time. And you'll be sitting there being like, finally I get to catch up with Joe. And then he's also catching up with the bartender or the owner or everyone there. And then other people will come up to the table to be like, oh, hey Joe, I saw you at so-and-so. And you'll be like, get out of here. It's my time with Joe. You book a time.
I really want to see you do that next time. Like, I really want to see you.
It's so annoying. I'm speaking on behalf of all the people that know you.
I totally get that. I totally get it. It's a smallish town.
I know, you're like, I know, I'm so popular.
It's a popularity thing. Okay, so I think people who are interested in this, one, you've got to go into it like super thoughtfully. And first, rule number one, do not do this to make money. And I know people say that, but I just cannot stress it enough, because it's not even about like whether or not we all want to make money doing it. Like that's not like something I oppose. But the problem is if like that's the main reason I'm in a deal, I guarantee you I'm going to find a reason to be super frustrated, adversarial with the founders, and just frankly like clouded in my perspective on how to help. And so one, just like these things have got to be primarily driven because there's some sort of reason you get excited about. For me, it's usually working with this person, right? It's like I'm fairly like technology or industry agnostic. I get excited about, like, I meet people, I'm like, this person's really smart and really interesting and really cool, and I just want to be associated. And if like my money is the way to be associated, like, all right, I guess that's what I got, like, and so that's the first thing I always kind of tell people is like, you are not a professional investor. And if your drive is to make money, give your money to a professional investor. I've got the name of several that I think would be great for their next, go invest in their next fund, right?
Yeah.
But this is not like, you are not going to like beat the market in picking out startups. I guarantee it. Okay. So it's really about what is the experience you're going to have as being connected to that company and that founder. That's what you should be. That's what you should be focused on, and that's what should sort of inspire you to do the deal or not. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people in this community who look at like my portfolios like, why the hell would he do that or this or that? And like, it's because I really just like the people, and it's fun to be a part of it. And by the way, like, I've had lots of companies that looked like they were doing one thing and suddenly do it. I mean, you just don't know. And so much of this is luck, I
think that was kind of Walt's thought too, was that he felt like he really focused on a couple of elements of like the entrepreneur, and like if he felt like they had it, that was like something that he wanted to connect himself with. And so I guess I didn't really totally finish my thought earlier of like, I think like that is kind of like one of your strongest suits is like, you're such a relationship builder that like, whether it's like when you're leading a company with your investors, or whether you're investing in a company, or whether you're like being annoying to me at the bar or whatever. Like, I feel like you do have a lot of work. Oh, and you're like on the board of the ACLU, and like do a ton of work building a network for fundraising and helping them. And that I think like, how would you like recommend other people or like, why do you do that? And like, what would you say for other people to like,
so I mean, I do it because like it brings me a lot of pleasure, and like I don't know what it is that I'm feeding in per my own sort of needs, but building relationships is kind of like the thing that keeps me going. And I meet someone, and I think it goes back to my early career. Like I remember, because I started off in this consulting practice, and we worked with like crazy clients, and I was so young, but the company was just me and like a few people. So like I got access to like, I met Jeff Immelt when I was like, in my early 20s doing like consulting work. It was crazy.
I don't know who that is.
Oh yeah. Sorry. CEO of General Electric back in the day.
Okay. I'm not that young. I'm like,
I know. Anyhow, like I found like when I got to business school, I found like, I realized as people were trying to connect with other people, like, I can get you in touch with that person. I realized like that was one of my superpowers, right? It was like connecting people. And I learned how valuable that was. Like all I did was write an email and introduce you to someone. And suddenly people were like, oh my God, Joe, thank you for that. And what can I do for you? Right. And so I learned it was like a really great way to, and something that was very easy for me to do, to build sort of political capital and personal capital with other people in the community. And I didn't do it because I was like, one day I've got something I'm going to ask of you. It's just, I knew that one day if I did need something, that person would be there for me. Right. And so the first thing is like, just be super sincere, like just go into this, like being sincere and transparent and open, like be helpful, be thoughtful, like be interested in the other person. It can't be transactional, right? Like it's just literally about like, and if you don't feel it, then just don't try to build a relationship with someone that you don't feel connected with, right? But when I meet someone, my initial response is like, who could help this person? Like, who do I know that's doing something interesting or related who can help this person? I have no idea if that person wants that or not, but that's just my default, right? But I find often that that's something that people tend to really appreciate.
Yeah. And I think that too, it'd be interesting to hear from someone, because both you and I are very like extroverted. It would be interesting to hear from somebody who is like very introverted, whether like when it comes harder to like, you don't really want to just be talking to strangers
Yeah.
and like having that like initial small talk kind of thing. But I think like having that, since trying to have those sincere relationships with something is maybe something that transcends between whether you like to talk to people or
Yeah.
you like to not talk to people, because you don't have the fake chit chat. You just do
Yeah.
try to build an actual relationship.
And two other things I'll quickly share, just from like just having been the recipient of a lot of this. One, be specific if you can. Like the number of times I get, hey, I just want to learn about the Ann Arbor startup scene, right? Like that's not super exciting for me, right? So if you want to connect to me, think of something that's actually going to be interesting and inspiring to me to connect with you about. So if like you want to build a relationship with someone, like you can't make it just on your terms in one directional, in one direction. So like if you come to me with, hey, I just want to suck your brain for contacts and information, like no matter how nice I might be, that still isn't interesting to me. That's still not going to like get me fired up to go seek you out and risk COVID and coffee with you.
So what would so it's kind of funny because we also talked to oh my gosh, I'm going to say his last name wrong and I learned it. Brett Demarais is how you say it. Oh my gosh, he's probably gonna kill me when he sees that. So Brett Demarais is
for what it's worth, I thought it was Demarais.
Don't say it wrong. I'm learning it because I've been saying it wrong in my head for.
Sorry, Brett. Yeah. Okay.
Years now.
So what did Brett?
So Demarais, Brett Demarais was saying the same thing of like when he gets a lot of, and he's a venture capitalist based in Detroit. He works with Jonathan Treese and Blake. They're like really awesome team. So if people are kind of interested in venture capital,
they've got a lot of hype and they're great.
Yeah, they're like doing awesome. Yeah. So he was saying that he gets a lot of startup companies reaching out to him for fundraising, but it is like a lot like what you were describing, like being like either like a really long email that he's like, what's going on here, or just an email that's completely self-serving to them versus like, so when someone is reaching out to an investor, what would you recommend that they are saying, or like reaching out to you? Whatever, what would you say?
If it's going to be like a cold thing, I think the best thing to do is find some connection. I don't care if it's, hey, listen, I'm a Michigan, alum or student, and I know you went there, and I'd love to like connect with you and share with you about what I'm working on and maybe learn something about from your experience, right? To, hey, Joe, I noticed that like you used to, run Nutshell, and I'm building a piece of software that might be related. So basically, tell me I'm special without telling me I'm special. Not because I need to think I'm special, because I don't have anything to offer you that is unique and interesting. If it's just like, hey, here's my startup that has nothing to do with any life experience you've had, and
that comes off as like stock email.
Well, but also like, by the way, I don't want to be unhelpful, right? Like that's not interesting to me. So if you set me up to be unhelpful, I'm like, I don't want to do anything here, right? And if I have no experience or no connection with what you're doing, I will not be helpful, right? Yeah. So that's one. The other is, and I need everyone to hear this like super loud and clear. I thought the world already knew this, and I'm realizing that's not the case. If you're going to introduce someone to someone else, first ask that person if they can be introduced. So
the double opt-in or whatever.
Double opt-in, it's so simple, but like too often, I'm just put on the spot, and it's like, it's not even that like I feel so special that I need to be, I need to. It's not that. It's like, I don't want to be put in an awkward, unhelpful situation where it's like, why, I can't help this person even, but I might know someone else who can. So I could quickly redirect them and save everybody time. And, so just always like the way I always do an introduction every time is, hey, write me an email that I can forward to that person. I forward that email to that person. Hey, so-and-so, this is so-and-so. Here is why I think you should meet with them.
Yeah, can
And
I
then
make
that person can decide, I agree with you, Joe, or Joe, you know what, I don't. And then no one feels awkward regardless of the
yeah.
outcome, right?
And that's a good like relationship building tip too.
Yeah,
Like I think not being lazy with your introduction. So when you're honestly trying to help somebody
yeah.
find the
Well, and
next
also just like the context, like, why did you think I should be, you know, like I've literally been on chains where it's like, I read the chain and it's like, oh, have you ever thought about this guy, Joe Malcoun? No, I don't know him. CC Joe. It's like, I don't know what to do. Like, what am I supposed to do there? Like, hi, CC.
that is so funny. You're just like, oh great.
But again, like,
Um,
I'm more than happy to be, but I want to be helpful. I don't want to be involved in shit where I'm not helpful. That's
and you get the awkward intro because the person, a lot of times I find that's when somebody is just trying to pass someone off, that they're not trying to help
well,
them. They're just
listen,
trying to
that
get
is an important point. Because even if that's not the case, which I'm not going to go and assume that that's the case, it feels that way. Right.
Yeah.
And it feels like, well, I didn't really want to spend time with this person, so I'm going to have someone else deal with it. And I'm not saying that that's actually what their intention was, but it often feels that way, which like is like double punch, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard a couple people recently saying that about like being asked. I know Monica Wheat, who's in Detroit, runs Venture Catalysts, and is like awesome. So many people, like everyone watching is like, yeah, we know her. She's also like a Joe Malcoun, where everybody knows you.
You know, I don't think oh no, we have met, but very briefly.
I'm just gonna see. This is what we're funny. I'll just do the intro, and I'm not gonna ask either of you. But no, she said the same thing recently about she's like, ask me before you just intro me, because she gets introed to so many people that like she can't help everybody and all that.
If I can figure out a way to monetize coffee about the Ann Arbor startup scene, all about it. Like I'll do it, but I can't monetize that. Like
I think that you actually I was just talking to the great Laura Khalil from Brave by Design the other day, and she was saying the same thing, because a lot of people, we're a research organization, so we know like the details and trends about like every startup and small business community in the Midwest. People will very, very regularly contact me just to be like, I just want to hear like an overview of Ann Arbor, like you said, like what's going on in Detroit tech. Like I'll have like a university professor from Atlanta or something being like, we're trying to do a study on Atlanta and it's similar to the one you did on Detroit. Can I talk to you about like the Detroit like startup scene and what you did and all that stuff? And she was like, do not do that for free, because I like have so many of those meetings. But she said that you should be like, I'd love to help you, and then have like a fee on Calendly. I mean, this is a very high level review of what she actually said, but
you should totally do that.
So I was just like, yeah, maybe. Okay. So what do I want to ask you now? Where, just to finish the thought on, where would you recommend that rich people go to learn more about angel investing or early stage investing?
Other rich people.
Other rich people. So you would say like connect with people.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, you know, and again, this is something I hear a lot. I mean, it's go find someone doing it, raise your hand. And, you know, once you raise your hand, first of all, capital is like being able to bring capital and investors to a deal is like, that's really awesome, right? So I'm more than happy to have a list of people that I can hit up and be like, hey, this deal's going on. And a lot of times the way I work is like, hey, listen, if you're interested in this stuff, the best way to learn about it is to just kind of do it. And do it doesn't necessarily mean invest. It means look at a company, meet some entrepreneurs, sit alongside someone else doing it, work with someone. And that's what I did, by the way. I worked with some awesome people early on, like shout out to like Dave Fry, for example, who would like work deals with me because he was so much smarter than me. And, you know, and people like Walt, who like just would let me like spin in dumb ways to try to be relevant until I learned that that's not how it works.
Yeah.
And so I would say find someone who is already connected and doing it. Say, I'd really like to do one. Can you please let me know the next time you're seriously looking at a deal? Then, someone like me, I'll hit them up. Hey, listen, I'm looking at this deal. I haven't decided if I'm doing it yet or not. By the way, another rule, don't pass on deals to other people that you are passing on, unless you have like a very specific reason why you're passing on it and you think someone else will not have that same issue. So that's another thing I see a lot.
You're like, hey, I got this really bad.
Hey, I want to introduce you to so-and-so who's raising money. Oh, cool. Are you No, I'm not. Why are you investing?
That's the worst introduction. They're like, Joe will give you money. Bye.
Yeah. So anyhow, and then just like do it with them. And I wouldn't suggest and keep it. By the way, the other thing I learned the wrong way is like start small. It's totally okay to write like $10,000 checks, right? Like, and again, this is all relative, but like when I got into this initially, I thought it literally was like a requirement to write like bigger checks, like much bigger. And I think that was wrong and and I think you can like really start smaller stakes, like hold back.
What do you think about people joining like angel groups to kind of get help in the vetting side and like have deals brought to them? People also real quick, like we say deals, but that's what like investors call companies that are coming to them asking for investment, which is also like a really rude thing to be calling them deals. And I try not to do, but then
I always think of the deal is the fundraise. It's the transaction.
Yes.
The deal happens with a company.
Yes.
So what I would say is that the quality of that vetting is directly correlated with the quality of the people who are running the angel group. Personally, I have found that like, and this is just me because I've been doing this a long time. I don't struggle with like getting deals. Like I don't struggle with people generally will be like, hey, have you talked to Joe? Right? Like you'll write a check for anything. No. So I would say that, just be mindful of, here's what I'd say. I'd say it's a great way to learn early on, be thoughtful of who you are learning from and don't make it your only source. But I don't believe if you want to do this kind of long-term, I don't think you necessarily, I think you can build out sort of your own program and your own framework for doing it outside of angel groups. I think angel groups are really great for people who are particularly passive, right? Like I like to like actually know, one of the things I learned from Jonathan Triest early on, this is one of the most brilliant things I think I learned in all of this, was Jonathan would tell me how he's like, look, I don't write checks big enough to be on the board, but I see the board deck before anyone else because I have a personal relationship with the founder. They come to me and are like, hey, this is the board deck. What do you think? Do you have any input? And like, I was like, holy shit, that's like brilliant. So like, that's kind of been the way I do it, right? Like I try to get close enough to the founders by being like, hey, I made a shit ton of mistakes over the many years I ran a company. Let me tell you about all the ways I made mistakes and how you can avoid them. Or here are people I know who might be helpful. So just basically being helpful, right? Mm-hmm. And then as a result, you then get access to information and you can kind of like help guide the ship a little bit, even though you're not like a big institutional check in the company. So all that stuff is like you build out that framework on your own over time. But if you want to just like have, if you want to have like, 10 checks in 10 different companies and, joining angel group's a really good way to do it. You won't, you'll definitely get a lot of looks, but you won't necessarily have like direct interaction with the companies.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting.
And they're just not all created equal either. I've seen some that can be predatory. I've seen some that are absolutely phenomenal. And, and then there's also like informal ones. Like I have my group of people, right? That like every time one of us gets a deal, we kind of share it. And, several times like some subgroup of us go in on it. We're not a named angel group.
Yeah, it's just, friends of Joe, friends of Walt style. And then is there an angel group that you would just say like, hey, check them out?
I actually am not, like, I haven't been involved in angel groups in a long time, so I just don't know. I honestly don't.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to name someone and then like tell people, oh, yeah, go over there.
Yeah,
And then
I don't know. Like, I know they exist. I just don't know what their sort of status is. Right.
yeah,
So I would say, look, like wherever you are, Google Angel Group, and you'll find something.
yeah.
Or ask Emily; she'll tell you.
Yeah, I know. I was like, yeah, no, but I'm going to charge you for that. No. I all of a sudden have rich people coming to me being like, what angel group should I join? I'll be like, send me a check for $10 and I'll tell you.
The angel groups should send you a check for $1,000 for every person who signs up.
I was like, that would be the day. Anyway, what is something exciting for you on the horizon in 2021? We are looking at the end of the pandemic nearish.
I am looking forward to nothing more than live music. Like, I cannot tell you like how, not just because of the Blind Pig. So for those who don't know, I'm an owner in the Blind Pig. I kind of put a group together. The Blind Pig is a small live music venue in Ann Arbor. I just saw Shade's comment.
I know. I was like,
Yeah.
we have been ignoring the comments, which is really terrible, which we can circle back on after you say the thing about the Blind Pig, and then we'll see the comments.
So the Blind Pig is an iconic small music venue in Ann Arbor. It was a big part of my time here in undergrad. And it was going to be sold, and I was kind of concerned about what that might mean for its survival and frankly, like this community. So I convinced a bunch of people to put money in and buy it, and some incredible people came to the table, like incredible people, like including really important people in this ecosystem, like John Oberheide and Roger Ehrenberg, and just awesome folks. So I cannot tell you how much I'm looking forward to going to a concert. In fact, I just bought tickets for a concert for the first time in like over a year. I have no idea if the show will actually happen on the date advertised.
Is it at Blind Pig?
No,
you're like, I don't need to buy tickets.
I don't usually buy tickets.
Those are my concerts.
No, I bought tickets for Dinosaur Jr. at the Majestic Theater on September 11th, 2021. And what will likely happen is that date will keep getting pushed. That's what's happened with our calendar. But it just felt kind of good to buy a couple tickets to shows. And
yeah,
I just want that more than anything. And being an operator, it's like, I know we were the first to close and we'll be the last to open. Like, we're a super spreader event by definition, right? So can't really do it till we know it's totally safe. That's really frustrating, but I just can't wait. I can't wait to listen to some loud music and be in a crowd of people.
Yeah, that is so fun. You are like is that a textbook extrovert? I think we've learned today. Yeah.
I don't know. I certainly believe it's on.
I can't wait to be around just tons of people I don't know. That's how I am also, so I like it. Yeah, that's so great. So everybody should check out, let's check out the comments here really quick. We have a couple happy birthdays for me. Thank you, Chris Thomas. Thank you, Allison Dodek. Shane Blindmaster.
First investment I ever made was with Chris. He introduced me to the founder, incredible guy who's kind of a legend out west named Barney Pell. That company is no longer operating, but not because of Barney. But Chris got me in my first deal ever.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, Chris Thomas is venture capitalist, mobility focused.
Super
also BTW, we have Allison Malik on next week. She used to run May Mobility. She also does like a ton of advocacy for like what the future of transportation is going to look like. And so she's going to be on next week, and that'll be really awesome. I'm like super excited to catch up with her because I haven't seen her in like 2 years. And she's like so cool. Like she's like, no,
I really want to meet her. I've heard incredible things.
I'm going to do an introduction without even asking anyone. No. Yeah, she's like awesome. She was at GM Ventures.
Yeah.
Was an engineer, was an early stage investor at GM Ventures, the corporate venture fund. Then she ran May Mobility as they were expanding, and a lot of people know it's an autonomous vehicle company. And then she like also does like just so much work with like policy around the future of transportation and like how transportation can help like lower barriers for people in different like lower income communities, and like all of that is like really cool. So we're going to be talking to her. But anyway, all of that because of Chris Thomas. And then, Ricardo Gonzalez, heyo, said, do you have any thoughts on normalizing high net worth people investing directly into companies, like making it more the culture here?
Yeah. I mean, we just need more people doing it and talking about it. I guess normalizing, I'm not totally sure what's meant there, but I think
I think in California, what he means, like in California, like everyone's uncle and cousin is a venture capitalist.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily a good thing, by the way. I think we certainly need. I think our problem is that a lot of money in this community came from some. By problem, I mean the way in which it can often translate as from investor into a startup is money is made in like a more conventional industry. That industry doesn't look anything like the one you're now investing in. And then there's confusion as to why you're operating a company the way you are, right? So I think like to normalize it, we need to get people to just break out of whatever their preconceived, notion is of like what it means to build a company. Mm-hmm. And also realize that like generationally, those things change. Those things change every generation. And, like for example, like people like to talk about the entitlement of millennials and the workforce and blah, 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 blah. But the way I kind of think about that and the way I thought about that when I was at Nutshell was when I was growing up, when I thought leave college, go and do business, the companies that I pictured were IBM and General Motors, right? General Electric, like I pictured literally those brands, those companies, right? This generation, when they hear graduate college, go into business, they think Google, Facebook. That is a totally different visualization of one's day-to-day life inside an office, inside a company, inside a brand. Like it's not that they're like, oh, give me all the free food. It's like, no, that's what a company does to that generation. So it's been redefined. So I think we all have to be like more aware of what it means to work with companies like this, and maybe just set aside some of your preconceived, views of what should be and shouldn't be.
Oh, interesting. And then Shane asked, can he get your?
I'm going to address this. Shane, I believe Hash Bash has been bastardized in the last 15 years. It used to be a beautiful spiritual experience on the Ann Arbor and on the University of Michigan Diag. I will never forget being like 14 years old and coming up here and, smoking pot and thinking I was super cool, and then just being paranoid the whole way home because I had to go see my parents. It's been bastardized, I believe. And I am now the curmudgeon-y old guy who's like, why are these kids parking in my neighborhood?
Parking in my neighborhood.
So I had to do a ride along for like a community training thing I was doing. I had to do a ride along with the police, and I chose Hash Bash, and it was hysterical. The cop basically just like spent the whole day be like, all right, here's another spot where they think they're hiding, but we know where they are. He would like roll up. He would like roll up on like somebody in the parking lot, like just flip on the siren real quick, like 10 heads would pop up.
That's so funny. And as ride along rich people speak for, you got arrested at Hash Bash when you were younger. Every citizen.
Every citizen's entitled to do a ride along. You should do it. It's very eye opening.
Oh yeah, that is interesting. Shane is happy with that response. So
that's all I really want to do is please Shane.
I know, isn't that in life? Shane is also one whose last name I've said it incorrectly for so long. I said Blymaster in my head, and then it's Bleemaster, which is devastating to me. Cool. All right. I have monopolized your entire morning, so I will let you go. But thank you so much for joining on my birthday. It was the funnest episode ever. So yes, thank you. And I am sure we will hopefully get together again soon inside of a restaurant at some point.
I'll
Maybe
see you on the
this
pool
summer.
deck. I'll see you on the pool deck.
I look forward to sharing you with the bartender this summer.
Well, Emily and I go to the same pool. And so,
oh God, I knew you were going to have to bring this up.
So I'll see you at the RC.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully this summer we'll be going there some.
You know, RC is the one place where I do not want to chit chat.
That is true. We pretty much, this is what we do at the pool. Hey-o. And then you just like to your own area. Awesome. Now I'm like all blurry. But awesome. Cool. Well, I will hopefully see you soon. And thank you so much for being on today.
Yeah, I miss you. I hope all the boys are doing well. Thanks for having me, Emily.
Yay. And then I will see everyone else next Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. when we talk to Allison Malick from all of the greatest mobility things in time. So,
awesome.
see y'all.
Bye.